And my then manager was actually Japanese, who just moved from Japan to Singapore, right? And I still recall my very first day at work. I was supposed to report to work at 6 a.m. I was there at 6 a.m. And then he gave me this look like, Shree, you're late. I was like, what are you talking about? I'm here at 6. But that is when I realized that from a Japanese cultural perspective, you should be there actually earlier than 6. You're not just there at 6, or 6:05 would be like, what are you talking about? Like, so again, that was my first peek into it. That's my very first job right after graduation, where I was like, this is interesting. And I started learning more about their culture. Um, for example, you could ask questions in the meeting like, does anyone have any questions? You're probably going to get silence. They would come up to you after the meeting to share their thoughts. They prefer one-on-one sort of interaction as opposed to a group setting. So over the years, I think I've been blessed with having to work with people from different cultures, Japanese, Koreans, um, of course, around the globe as well, those from the States, from EMEA, as we call it in Europe. And I think what continues to fascinate me is that a lot of times things become challenging when we are not having a curious mindset, right? I think that, and all of us have biases, and it's okay to acknowledge the biases, but we've got to do something about it. So I think from my personal experience, I have over the years sort of not, and especially from a people lens and a HR lens, not apply the same sort of hiding behind the policy kind of a perspective. I go in with empathy, with curiosity to find out where they're coming from. Why do they have this particular perception to work? In Singapore, I would say the work-life balance or integration is quite skewed. But if you compare that to Australia, it's very different, right? Most of the companies knock off at 5 p.m. or even 4 p.m., depending on where you're at. So again, I think the work-life integration or work-life balance, as they call it, really depends on each country, their cultural norms, societal norms as well. And in order to be able to balance that, you always go in with empathy and curiosity to understand where they're coming from. And then if there's, try to find a middle ground. And I think there's always the possibility if you start the conversation from a place of curiosity and empathy.
Thanks, Sri. I love that. I'm from Singapore, and that's how Sri and I met a long way back. Um, I think I'm not going to summarize everything, but I'm really hearing about when there is that big difference, cultural, even society and norm. Um, we're going to be different. And I think when we come from that curiosity, when we come from the empathy, we can meet on the middle ground. And I love that. Yeah. Um, Mel, you want to jump in and share what is your perspective of that cultural difference from what you have seen or what you have experienced so far?
I think Shree really summarized it well from the perspective that in the old days, it meant work-life balance. And I believe it was an illusion. I think it was a concept that was designed by people who were in control. And we're, I'm choosing my words really carefully because culturally, I had a guest on a live stream a couple of weeks ago. And one of the things that I really appreciated was our guest showed up with the freedom to be able to choose the title of our discussion. And we picked a topic, the alchemy of anger. And we really understood it from different cultural perspectives, from different industries, from different generations, from different lifestyles, and as entrepreneurs. And in his case, as somebody who popped up in workplaces in a fractional environment, I think that the challenges that work-life balance really never existed. And as many of us are either in entrepreneurs, we work virtually, we work online, we work in person. And as some people I love are returning to the office to work more often, that the rules are changing. And Shree said it really well. Culturally, we're expected to work long hours in offices. We're expected to show up for FaceTime. We're expected to be fully present. We're expected to suppress our emotions. We're expected. The expectations are a big part of the cultural perspectives and sometimes occasionally the baggage with which we report to live, virtual, and hybrid workplaces. It might not be a popular answer, but it's the reality that culturally speaking, we're expected to continue paying our dues way past the time when the dues have been paid in full. And different viewpoint, and perhaps a viewpoint during Black History Month, which is not necessarily being celebrated in our country the way that it used to be, and the same way that diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging are 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 under attack right now. So thank you so much for an opportunity to weigh in and join your amazing panel.
Thanks, Mel, for sharing that. Yeah. Iliana, what about your perspective, especially maybe a little bit more about the cultural variation in boundary between professional and personal space?
All right. So, I've been in this business workforce for about 28 plus years. Started out as a young mom, knocking those doors, trying to find a job. And that's really where my passion comes from opening up those career doors to anyone, business, community, people one on one. But culturally, I mean, it's a game. Business is a business game. You got to be good at it. You got to be able to adapt the good and ugly. I remember when I worked under nurse administration, my hours were from 5 o'clock in the morning until whenever. Wednesdays, my kids used to have to come in. We would eat dinner down in the cafeteria before they went to church because sometimes mom couldn't go to church with them, right? Sometimes mom had to miss the basketball game. And at that point, I just had two boys. And then all of a sudden, I got a sprinkle of girl power in my life by having my girl, and literally cultural and sometimes our belief just doesn't match, and that's where we come to losing good workers, those workers that might need a little bit more PDO time, maybe because we're caretakers, right? I mean, let's jump from back in the 80s and 90s back to the 2000s where we're at. I'm an open caretaker. I'm also an open business leader. I really am a media. I post my life and my journeys on public media. So some days I'm up and perky, other days I look like crap. But you have to be able to learn when you need to adapt and when you don't need to adapt, when you need to kind of know that I've had enough, right? Enough is enough of me not being able to take 2 hours extra so I can make it to my kids' game. Or, I can wear my hair like I need to without you telling me it's inappropriate for my work environment. There comes a point in time, no matter how much we love what we do, either we're going to have to adapt or we're going to have to find our own journey. And that I think is where we come in crossroads, where we find ourselves in a culturally sensitive arena and we don't know where to go. A lot of us normally, when something occurs in our life, our brain stops and reacts, right? Like go on that mode of protection because those are our body senses. And as a business leader, you got to learn how to use those same senses to better yourself and really, like the images behind me. I just, didn't become a superhero overnight. I've earned it. I've dug deep on it. I'm like Shree. I elbow with all kind of folks from all kind of backgrounds. LinkedIn has allowed me to now connect with people overseas which just makes my heart just melt away to know that I got people that listen to old Iliana out here, right? So culturally, it becomes at the end of the day, business or not, a business and a personal question and a decision that you got to be comfortable with. Because if you're out here saying that you're authentic, then you got to be authentic every platform that you have, regardless of what your AI chat GPT comes out. If you're out using chat GPT to cushion something, at least make it cushion like you. Don't make it cushion like someone else is talking for you, because then of course everyone's not going to like you being an AI chat GPT fanatic, right? So it's a learning, there's always room to learn. I always tell everyone, if you come to a point in life where you feel like you've learned it all, then step back, take a deep breath, and reflect and really dig deep in that area that you have to learn. Because I only hang around with folks that are learning. Because in business doesn't stop, right? Like if we're talking about entrepreneur business, that's me. That's where my head is all the time. Do I have a personal life? Yes. Am I getting, those strange looks even now culturally in business? Of course. But I choose to keep my vision focused and my brain focused on my journey, which is not easy. And I know not everyone can do it. So I thank Eris for allowing this open, candid conversation this morning.
Thank you. I think lots to say there, but I picked up a few very good work. If we truly value our people, the good worker, we have to appreciate the whole of them rather than, okay, you are just here to work and I don't care about the rest of you, but it's really about the whole person. And we need to learn when to adapt, when not to adapt in this journey. And I love what you say, the authenticity in every sense, staying true to ourselves, not in environment A, I'm going to be like this, in environment B, I'm going to be like this. But it's always that me, and I'm always going to, so they can see me in different angle, but it's still me, and they can see the full of me, staying true to authenticity. And I think our fourth panel is here. Aqua is here. So thank you for being here. We just started with our first questions on our cultural perspective on work-life integration. So let me introduce Aqua. So she is a distinguished LinkedIn and career coach, recognized as a LinkedIn top voice for career and job search. And she basically empower individual and organization through her signature cash method for LinkedIn success. She's also a neurodivergent leader with dyslexia and dyscalculia. And she's a passionate advocate for inclusivity in the professional spaces. And of course, her background include significant experience in the UK civil services, where she has led multi-million-dollar digital transformation as an IT project manager. And she has entrepreneurial venture into founding startup like Layover Adventure, the Hackathon Queen. She's also the author of the self-help book, Be Your Number One Cheerleader, and of course, been recognized for her silver contribution. Formerly, she was also co-lead the GTA Black Women in Tech and bring a wealth of diverse experience to our discussion. And maybe, I'm not sure, Yuko, you want to join these questions, or we can go down to our second segment where we talk a little bit about navigating our cultural authenticity. I think that is what Iliana have kind of touched on. Maybe we continue on that part, as challenges of maintaining our cultural identity when we are in a diverse work environment. What does that being cultural authentic mean to you in a professional context? Maybe Aqua, you want to share your perspective. What does being cultural authentic mean for you in a professional context?
Sure, thank you. It's great to be here. And yeah, I think that in your workplace, there are different, to me, in fact, let's start from the beginning. For me, there are many ways to be authentic. And for me, it's not one plane and one dimension of authenticity. So for me, it's like, you choose how to be your most authentic in the space that is relevant to you, because obviously in the workplace especially, not all of our authentic self can be necessarily taken in the right way. So you might choose to show a work authenticity as opposed to a home authenticity, or a with your girl authenticity, etc., etc. So for me, I like to say that we all have many faces, and it doesn't mean that we're not true to ourselves. It just means that we read the room. Because being a career coach, I've had a lot of people come to me, and one of the things that they talk about is whether someone who decides to code switch in the workplace, I'll explain what that is authentic. So code switching basically is if you are choosing to talk in a different way or slightly moderate your behavior to be in the workplace. Now, for me, whilst I understand some people don't feel that, speaking in a different way, or, not necessarily feeling comfortable to wear the traditional clothes that they might wear when they're in their community is not authentic, but you have to decide what you feel is appropriate for where you have chosen to work. And here's the thing. So for me, I have in the corporate life felt comfortable to go in a corporate, in like traditional African materials and clothing, because to me, I'm able to hold that, and I don't feel any kind of awkwardness. But you have to be able to hold that yourself. You have to be able to be confident in wearing that thing, and not feeling stressed about that particular face of yourself. And similarly, the way that you speak in the workplace, there are some ways of speaking that just aren't accepted, and that's something we have to I think that is, if you want to be in certain environments, that you will have to decide if that's for you. So not every environment is an environment that's gonna be okay with you, like using slang and using different kinds of language. So for me, it's about that choice, about where you decide to put yourself, and then deciding how you want to be able to be authentic in that particular environment.
Thank you so much for that. I love what you share about able to hold true to yourself, the confidence, and ultimately the decision, is it for me? And making the choice. And of course, it's never going to be easy. Yeah. And maybe even post that to the others who want to kind of jump into, especially in the organization context. Shree, I know you're still in the corporate as an HR, maybe what are some of the things that you think organization practices can help to make people feel more comfortable in expressing cultural identity? I don't know whether I put you on a spot, Shree.
No, I love that question. I think it's something, again, that doesn't get spoken about often, because the topics, again, tend to be around gender, it's around disabilities, around neurodivergences, all of these things. But underpinning all of this is actually cultural norms and aspects, right? So in a country like Singapore, where we actually have, it's quite a melting pot. So just for everyone who's watching, we have Chinese, Malays, Indians, and others in Singapore. You could walk into a street where you could have a Chinese temple right next to an Indian temple, then further down the stretch is a mosque. So that's how integrated it is from a cultural perspective. But I think where I feel companies draw a stand is, it really depends on what is it that you stand for. Like for me, I think the companies that I've worked for, they always encourage, whenever it's a particular festival, say it's Christmas, be it Deepavali, or be it Eid or Hari Raya as we call it here, people are encouraged to show up in their cultural attire. It doesn't only have to be on the day. You could wear it. I've not particularly had an instance where someone was frowned upon for wearing their cultural attire. And to Eko's point, I don't often turn up in a sari because I can't handle it, right? And so I'm like, I don't want to trip and fall and like go like, oh, I don't know how to handle this. But I would always tell the folks in my office, my leaders, employees I speak to, like, please wear what you're comfortable in. Sometimes they go like, oh, Shree, is it appropriate to wear like a particular traditional attire? I'm like, it's entirely fine. No one's gonna ask you anything, and they shouldn't be. There needs to be that openness to bring your whole self to office. I think to Echo's point, what I want to touch on is while you read the room and you do what makes sense for you, I think what I would like policies and companies to be in is a state where people don't have to feel they need to hide a certain aspect of themselves to get ahead or to be heard. I think that would be a situation that I don't want to be part of, and I wouldn't necessarily support in any way, shape, or form. Um, and I'm gonna give a short story. I love to give so many stories, right? So there was once when I had a business trip, and I was my first business trip to India. I'm Indian. I'm traveling to India. I'm at the immigration counter, and the immigration person starts talking to me in a language that I have no clue what it is, and I was just like, okay. And then I was like, I remember telling him like, no, I don't understand. It was only after like maybe 10 minutes that he started speaking to me in English. He's like, oh, I thought you're Indian and you speak Hindi. I'm like, actually, no, I grew up in Singapore. And then we started having a conversation about what are the national languages in Singapore, where exactly it is. And that turned into like a 30 minutes conversation with the immigration officer. And people behind were like, what's going on over there? Right. So again, the reason why I bring this up is people look at you and there's often stuff that comes into their head, be it biases or be it generalizations. And I think it's important for us to also constantly talk about our cultural experience whenever we have a chance to in the organization. We have like meet and greets. There's like gaming nights in the company that I work every Thursday. Everyone gets to come together to game, right? And that's regardless of who you are and where you're from. And I think setting those communal experiences where everyone comes together over the passion of a product or a game or a particular topic, that really exposes people to the different kinds of folks that's out there. So I think for me, going back to your question, Aries, I really think that it's about um, as long as people are not feeling, and this is, I think the last point I want to make is to actually give the tools to managers to be able to have some of these conversations. Sometimes someone might come up to a manager and go like, I want to, for example, I want to break fast for Eid in the office. What is the manager going to say? He might go like, oh, I don't know, please speak to HR. But that's not how it should be. It should be as a manager, what do you think? Is there something that's appropriate? We can come in to help you to have the conversation. But I think to have, again, going back to my earlier points, coming from a place of empathy, coming from a place of curiosity, and create a common ground where people can come together to share. And I think that's how the flexibility behind not just people policies, but the company value should stand for as well.
Thanks, Shree. Lots there. I think a few points that I picked up was really about that openness. When we are more open, we're able to minimize that. I think Michael asked a question about, he dressed in one way as an example and not acceptable by the principal. So I think there's setting back to equalize, say that decide for yourself what is it that is that you is right for you. And there's a lot of the generalization and biasness. You have to dress this way, then it's considered formal. You don't dress this way. We all have that in us. So what do we know? I think awareness. And I think I'm hearing the communion as an organization, putting people together and explore them to see what's out there. And this reminded me of a conversation I had with a client some time ago. And a lot of people actually come to coaching also as well as like saying, how do they handle that difference as a minority or even as a manager? How do they help their people? And I love what you say, Sri, giving the tools to the manager to help them to handle the conversation. But how can we help our manager to actually to be able to have that conversation? Because when they see the difference or they don't even realize the difference and they just go like that, wearing that cover lens, and they just think everybody's like that as a majority. Yeah. And Mel, you want to say something? Please unmute yourself and pop into this conversation.
Particularly with respect to Michael's comment in the chat. And, I started off in that area somebody I adore, a positive intelligence coach with who's part of the diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging community of practice, started a really rich discussion about ways to navigate, adapt, and thrive in its changing world. She launched it in November, and she's continuing a discussion this Saturday. She's made it really affordable. It's US $5 for people to pop in and join, of any age, of any community, into a really deep discussion, because Michael's speaking about how the environment and his workplace environment changes in response to management, in response to leadership, in response to others' visions of how he should show up or how he should wear his hair. I smiled because somebody said to me, and I adore them, a collaborator said to me last year, you really need to change your LinkedIn picture. You've been changing your hair a lot recently. And I laughed because as we're celebrating 3 years of live streams, my team went back. I've had 8 different hairstyles in the last 3 years. We are women. We are people. We need to sometimes show up in the way that feels like us. I'm ecstatic to be on a domestic violence board and finally have purple hair. We have the freedom of, and I think another one of the comments in the chat is about stress and burnout and depression and suicide and the syndromes in the workplace. There's a Gallup poll study that Ali Uren, Uren, had shared with us, talented, amazing woman from Tanzania. And she had shared the poll and comments about ways to eliminate isolation. It's a growing problem in our communities. It's a growing problem in our world. It's a growing problem in our workplace. And there aren't enough resources to address mental health. We'll soon be back to Mental Health Awareness Month. And just like the diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging discussion, there are priorities that we as solopreneurs, we as great, good humans, we as people who want to show up to kind of build community and support each other, we need to make them priorities. Bernie, he's the mustache man. I'll have to share him in the chat. Bernie had a valuable discussion last week about suicide from a male perspective, because it affects us all. And we really need to look to our right, to our left. Iliana and your other amazing panelists today, Aries, are really saying it best. We have a choice of how we show up. We have a choice of where we show up, when we show up, why we show up, and how we show up. And I think culturally, we're missing the big part of some of the comments that are in the chat.
Thank you, Mel. That's really, really lovely. I just want to add a point to what you say about eliminating isolation. I find that as we work more and more online, because all my work is done online, as well as I see my clients online globally, the isolation is very, very strong. I think even especially during COVID, I even have clients saying that they started seeing like therapies because of that. They don't get to see you don't have physical interaction. It's all online. And people start even turning off their camera. So it's really affecting us. So on the front line, we all look well, but behind the closed door, nobody knows what's going on. Yeah. So it's really coming together. And the choice, what you say, how and when and why we show up. I love that. Wow. Okay. Yukra, please, Aqua, you want to unmute yourself and yeah.
Yeah. So I just wanted to add to the points about stress, mental health, and well-being in society and in the workplace. So it is a very challenging time. There is no doubt, especially if you are situated in America. or even anywhere in the world that is having a lot of turbulence in their leadership politically, and that doesn't align with your particular values and beliefs. That is a very hard situation to be in. But the thing that I would say to people is that it is about that knowing yourself. So, we have choices to make. We don't always have to, sit there and watch the news for like 4 hours if that's going to mentally deplete us, drain our energy and make us feel like really bad. Because the thing is, though, people just like are autopilot. They feel that they have to consume so much news when you don't have to. Like, I'm not saying you shouldn't consume anything at all, but you can decide to have bite-sized chunks or to consume online, or you can, decide, how much and how often. And also, we all have choices about who we surround ourselves with. And again, I would look to ask yourself, like, seriously, like, are you in the right groups? And then the friendship groups, WhatsApp groups, and what you consume on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, wherever you hang out, because that again is pumping to you things that could be stressing you and making you feel unwell. So, whilst yes, it is definitely challenging out there, I don't deny that. I also urge us to think about how can we help ourselves, and how can we actually create environments for ourselves where we are proactive and putting ourselves in places and spaces that are supporting wellness, whether that is through connecting on the phone or meeting people, going for walks, whatever it is.
I love that. It's really about being mindful, knowing yourself, whether are we in the right group? Are we in the group that stress us? Are we in the group that leads us up? If not, are we creating the right environment? I love that. Thank you. Iliana, yes. Is something that you want to pop in and share with us?
I do. I just kind of want to add on to this great conversation, and I see Michael's question. Hello, Michael. Thanks for joining us on this great conversation this Wednesday morning. I think as leaders, we know there's changes, right? And if you're a leader, you have to adapt. But being authentic really, for me, making sure that everyone feels culturally able to express themselves, right? To be able to give a little wiggle room to adapt to these new standards. Because it's not just about who you are, but it's about what you do. Like Aris mentioned, you know, policies, we don't have to agree with them, but if you're a business leader, you're going to have to adapt. There's no policy that's telling you you cannot write X, Y, and Z. It's just a shift. And sometimes when we stay kind of closed minded a little bit and maybe stay in that negative vibe where we're watching the news constantly, or, for me, it was when I got that direct email from the government that said, these are the changes. Of course, I took a big deep breath and I thought, oh my goodness, I knew changes were coming. I mean, we all here know changes were coming. If you live in the US, we knew come last year, October, we knew that changes were coming. I think humanity wise, we didn't realize the big impact, how big these changes were coming down the pipeline. So they hit us all at one time, right? But if you are a leader that leads a diversity of team, because of these changes, doesn't mean that you pull who your team is, right? I don't want to pull the identity of my coworker, Daisy Solar, that's originally from Puerto Rico. But we are going to have to adapt, let's just say, maybe on the business marketing, how we're sharing the mission that Daisy Solar is on, because we are leaders. And yes, it can feel very isolated when you're maybe one of the few that can wrap your head around these major changes. And, I always tell everyone, you just got to be comfortable with your choice. What is your choice? You don't have to be comfortable with the choice that Marianne or Joe next to you. You got to be comfortable with your choice. And when you roll the dice, it's like you're gambling, right? whatever it hits on, you still can't switch who you are. And being a good leader, and I think having a good workplace environment moving forward, those leaders that can think outside of the box and give their team a little bit of room to breathe will be the ones that you will see move forward in 2025.
Thank you. I'm hearing the choice and being comfortable with your own choice. And that means, again, knowing who you are and the ability to express ourselves. And when you are not able to express yourself in the environment that has oppressed us, then know what choice you have and make that choice. Yeah, I love that. I'm very mindful of the time. We're about 40 minutes into our conversation. So just this part here, with all that difference, because we are from cultural background, from language, whatever, how can we be more inclusive, have a workplace inclusive, especially now DEIB? Somebody asked me this question, very, very recent. This is in Singapore, I have this conversation. She said, what happened to the US company now that there's no more DEIB, at least for the next 4 years? I was like, I can't really answer that question. But I'm actually personally very interested, especially for, US have a lot of it's MMC, and they are all over the world and international. And now with Trump there, we kind of I'm sorry, I'm going to use the word, put on hold. And I'm really wondering the question is, what is going on with the whole DEIB there? Because it is there. We are different. Today we sat here, we are all women, but we all come from a different culture. We come from different colors and everything. So that is the difference, recognizing the difference. So by not talking about it, what is that impact? And maybe that will be last question before I tell you what happened after this conversation. Who want to jump in and talk a little bit more about this?
So you can't kill DEI, basically. As much as they say that they can, tell the corporates to, do what they are telling them to do. Essentially, there will be some companies that will, follow and do the stuff, and there'll be other companies who decide they don't have to do the stuff, or they're not going to do it to the same extent. The thing is that there is choice, even in a mandate or a shift like that. There's still choice, because at the end of the day, it's about the shareholders. If that company who is actually doing DEI really well and making dollar, they're going to carry on. They're not going to be like, you know what, Trump told me not to do it, I'm not doing it. That's all. Anyway.
Okay, great one. Well, thank you. And then it's all back to the shareholder, what they want. Yeah. Maybe in terms of inclusivity, what can organization or team do to better support that difference in the work environment or work style? Any thoughts?
Sorry, I'm just gonna jump on the bandwagon that Ego started and say yes, there's no killing of DEI. I think I just want to say it's a way of, to me, it's not just about a company value. I think we are all from such different backgrounds and intersections, right? I feel it's a way of life. I feel as a company, it just makes no business sense for you not to be advocating or even just talking about it, right? Yes, there could be some gag orders and mandates that, could be passed, but I don't think it's actually going to stop individuals from doing their magic. You can't stop a manager from asking maybe a neurodivergent employee that he knows, hey, how are you doing? How's everything? Do you feel you're getting the support you need? It's these small things that matter, and it will continue no matter where you are. You may not get perhaps the funding for some of the bigger programs, but it's never going to stop you or any organization from doing whatever they can. Right. I mean, I believe that there's sufficient resources. There's a lot of groundswell and community events that people will always come together to like, what can we do about this? How can we do it differently? And at least I know in APAC, there are, of course, MNCs where they have decision making that's coming out of US. But I do feel that it's not going to stall and stop anything. My personal opinion is that this is a way of life. It's who you are. When you walk into an organization, anyone walks into an organization, they bring in all parts of themselves, the different intersections. And this actually, to the previous question, when they feel like they're not getting the support, that actually affects people's mental health. And imagine an organization that's losing its people because they feel like they're not being supported. Now that's business case enough for you to continue to do what you need to do, right? So I personally feel that there's always things that can be done ground up, not just at a policy level as a company as running programs, but just as us as individuals can continue to carry that baton and have that conversation. HR professionals like myself, we can continue to provide support, tools, and whatever we can in our own capacity.
I love that. I love what all of you guys have shared, right? When it's always there, whether you want to call the elephant out or you just ignore. I can't see it, but the elephant is always there. The white elephant is always there. And if they don't get the support, there will be other impact, which is the mental health and underlying, and then there will be a P&L, and eventually you get hit. And I'm very mindful of the time, and I'm going to maybe ask all of you to have just share one keyword. What is it that you like to share as we wrap up today's sessions? Yeah. That you like
I got 2 words. Don't
Yes.
assume. Don't assume. Just do not assume. Those are my 2 words I'm going to leave you with because I'll keep going. Don't assume.
Don't assume. Any more keywords that you want to share with our participants or with all of us here?
Yeah, it'd be mindfulness. Mindfulness.
Mindfulness, knowing yourself. Yeah. Mel, Shree.
Mel says erase at least one ceiling in our fragile world so it doesn't hang over the heads of people trying to flourish or future generations.
Hey, Mel, that's not one word.
The good news is that, as Aries would say, from a positive intelligence perspective, there are 9 saboteurs. I tried to keep it to less than 10 words. I'm writing a book.
Okay, I'll summarize for her. Erase one ceiling. Can I do that, Mel?
You already have today. You're erasing glass ceilings. You're erasing concrete ceilings. You're erasing bamboo ceilings. We appreciate you and your energy and your courage for bringing us together today at a time when many feel like our voices, our thoughts need other outlets. So thank you for bringing us together today to start.
You're welcome. And I really appreciate all of you here. And before we close, I know Shree, you want to have a word that you want to share?
Well,
Word.
not so much of a word as a quick phrase. I believe the time is always right to do what is right.
Oh, time is always right to do what's right. This is a powerful one.
Yeah, and I think there's no right time to do what is right. So yes.
I like that one. There's no right time and it's always right. Yeah. And I would like to invite all of you to continue this conversation, whether you're listening, watching us live here in LinkedIn. I love for you all to join this conversation live on stage because we don't have audio LinkedIn now. I'm like to do this conversation in Clubhouse. I'll put down more details, and the invitation is to my panelists, ladies. When is a good time that we can continue this conversation in more detail? And until then, I want to say thank you and thank you and thank you. I really appreciate all you here and joining this wonderful conversation. Yeah, cultural diversity in our modern workplace. And until then, bye, everybody.
Bye, ladies.
Thank you so much, everyone. Bye.
Bye. Take care, everyone.